Am I the butthole for getting angry at a hairstylist who called the authorities? This is absolutely wild to me. I, 18 female, am back from college and recently went to a new hair salon with my best friend, 18 female. Gemma is deaf, was wearing a Gallaudet shirt, it says Gallaudet University, School for the Deaf on it, and wanted to go blonder, because of the fact that everyone has to wear masks. She can't use her lip reading skills and instead uses her phone or uses sign language. We went to get our hair done together and I decided to help her out and show the new hairstylist what she wanted with her hair and explain in detail how she wanted her hair done. Did I sort of hover? Yes, I did. I noticed that the hairstylist was getting out the wrong things and I went over 3 times to tell her while Gemma sat there quietly, not knowing what the hell was going on. The stylist started to act really strangely and started to talk to Gemma, snap her fingers near her ears, and finally said she was taking a break and went off to the back room of the hair salon for a few minutes. At this point, Gemma and I decided that the service was crap and that it was time to go. Before we could leave, the hairstylist came back and literally kept us there. She made excuses, started talking, and stalled and prevented us from leaving. The cops arrived like 10 minutes later and Gemma and I were separated and I was taken into one area. I was asked a few questions and I answered. I showed them pictures of us as children in our Instagram and Snap stories. I called my dad, and the cops understood everything. It turns out that the hairstylist had assumed that Gemma was being human trafficked because she was catatonic in her chair, she was unresponsive, she seemed agitated by waving her hands around, and I was doing all of the talking for her. The cops left and I went out there to scream at the hairstylist. I used some choice words, called her some mean things, and, because it's a chain, I forced her to call her manager so that I could watch her get fired on the spot. I was extremely angry and I told her that she was the stupidest bee in the world for all of the drama. Am I the butthole for screaming at the stylist? We left with a lot of free stuff and gift cards, but my friends say that she was doing her job. I think that she was a nosy bitch. ESH. Except Gemma, I was with you until the cops explained the concern was for human trafficking. The struggle for people who lip read even partially is real. They often need people to help right now. Did you explain that she is deaf and give the hairstylist the idea that she could type things to her so she could answer for herself? The hairstylist could have handled it way better and figured out a way to communicate with Gemma before she escalated the situation to involve the police. You should have handled your temper better and understand that if your friend was being trafficked she would have been saved. Also, I do believe hairdressers are taught to notice the signs of abuse and respond to them by calling the police. In my opinion, it's NTA because the hairstylist never apologized and instead doubled down. Edit. Some people have showed some stuff proving original post is lying, and along with original post changing their story, I have come to the conclusion I was wrong. Uda. She might have if original post had not screamed at her and called her names. At that point she joined the butthole group. If I read Op's response to a comment right, they started yelling after the stylist refused. I have not read all the comments. In the post she just says she went back in to yell at her, so I wonder what came first, the yelling or the refusing to apologize. I'm a little confused myself, but I'm pretty sure refusing to apologize came first. That's a pretty important detail to just omit. Yay, makes me think she added that because she was getting a lot of Uda judgments. The original post says she went out there to yell. I think that is the way things actually went down, and now she's just trying to make herself look better. Also, yelling is really never the answer, regardless. It was a misunderstanding, and these kinds of misunderstandings rarely happen because someone like original post is being perfectly normal and communicating well. Perhaps original post was being super snappy and impatient and sketchy, as if she was trying to get the haircut over with and get out of there like a human trafficker, and by trying to leave quickly she seemed even more suspicious. Uda for getting upset that you seemed so sketchy that you were mistaken for a human trafficker. Edit. If original post is having trouble communicated exactly what went down in the comments anyways, then that is further suggesting that original post is just bad at clearly communicating and the hairdresser was just looking out for Gemma. I agree, but I can't edit that in as I'm not the writer of this story. It happens all the time in this sub. People post here and then all of a sudden new details start coming out from them in the comments that totally changes the perception of the original post. Whenever that happens, I'm always suspicious. I don't know about this, I feel like readers on Reddit tend to expect too much from people making posts. I know a lot of people in real life that are pretty bad writers and are pretty bad communicators in general, and if they're telling me a story, they will omit a bunch of relevant info until I ask them a bunch of questions to coax it out. I think what you're talking about certainly does happen, especially when it's some very convenient unexpected twist, but I think a lot of people are just writing a stream of consciousness post and aren't really good at realizing what is and isn't relevant for their story. Most people are pretty bad historians of their own life. I usually just assume that, like me, they are just bad writers. There are posts where the original post magically comments in extremely convenient info that supports their actions. It's pretty clearly that once that happens, the post story is fake. Uda. I understand this is a terrible situation, but I truly believe the stylist was worried. I once broke my elbow for the second time in 6 months. My ex-boyfriend was a big and grumpy dude. They held me longer at the hospital and sent him out of the room with an excuse because they were worried I was a domestic abuse victim. If someone caring is worried and makes a mistake out of care, it's not okay to yell at them. I understand the situation was horrible, but she did the thing she thought was right. Calling the police on deaf or disabled people and their aides is unacceptable, especially when the disabled person is agitated or can't communicate. Police regularly shoot first and ask questions later in those situations. I agree, but it really seems like the hairstylist didn't know she was deaf. Original post just assumed they knew. The stylist thought she was unresponsive due to being trafficked, hence the clicking near the ears. Yeah, original post name drops Gallaudet like most people would know what that is. I didn't until I watched the first episode of that Netflix show Deaf U, and it still took me a minute to figure out why I knew it. I didn't even know there was a deaf university until I saw the show, and I've been through the college researching process twice in the last 8 years. Op just assumed they knew, not even that. Original post admits her friend does think it's important to tell people she's deaf when she has friends/family around to translate for her, so they actively kept that information from her. I'm deaf. What original post did is actually wrong. She took away Gemma's agency completely in this situation. She outright admits to talking to the hairdresser about Gemma when Gemma literally had no idea what was going on. That's absolutely a butthole move. She could have communicated to her friend what was going on, Gemma could have communicated back, and original post could have then interpreted to the hairdresser. No wonder the hairdresser thought Gemma was being trafficked. She was not included or involved at all in the decision-making that was about her. Hairdresser had only good intentions, as a deaf person would be extremely vulnerable in a trafficking situation. The police were called not on Gemma, but on original post, who is not deaf. Thank you for this. It didn't sit right with me that Gemma's friend was helping yet leaving her confused. I don't have any D/deaf friends, but surely if you're helping them with communicating, you're supposed to help them communicate, not do it for them without their express permission. When I first met my deaf friend, she explained to me that it was extremely rude to talk to her interpreter instead of her. Even when there's a translator present, you talk to the person who is deaf like normal and the translator translates. Example, don't look at the interpreter and say, "Will you tell her I said hello?" Do look at the deaf person and simply say, "Hello." And the interpreter will interpret. In the first example, you're excluding the deaf person from the conversation, which is weird and rude to them. They're still a person. Talk to them, not around them, like in the second example. It strikes me as extremely rude for original post to exclude her friend from a conversation that's literally about her. She's deaf, not a child. Reading lips is hard with masks, but original post can still act as an interpreter and speak to her friend in sign language. Maybe Op's friend preferred to do things in a way that excluded her from knowing what was happening around her, but that's not typical from what I know about the deaf community. Here for this. Most valuable response right here. This here. The way original post handled the situation was not in a way that is empowering. I've worked in disability care and was specifically told when interpreting for a person who is deaf to not do the things original post did. Yeah, I decided to help her out made me raise an eyebrow. Did she ask for help, or did original post just decide? Uda, why not at any point explain that she was deaf? Was your friend just straight up ignoring the hairdresser? Thinking it was human trafficking wasn't even that odd at that point. Was keeping you there and calling the police a bit over the top? Maybe, but the way you behaved, human trafficking was the more logical option than believe how rude you two were being. By your own measure, your friend was completely ignoring the hairdresser. I forced her to call her manager so that I could watch her get fired on the spot. This makes you a butthole every time, even if it was warranted. This just sounds gleeful about it. Edit for visibility, a comment from original post added later. Gemma thinks that her not being able to hear should be on a need-to-know basis, and so she doesn't tend to want people she doesn't know to know when she can have me or other people interpret for her. So Gemma doesn't want people to know she's deaf. But this hairstylist should have known she was deaf. Also, if people aren't supposed to know she's deaf, I'm guessing she does no signing or writing messages. She just straight up ignores everything that's going on. I mean, I can think of no other way to pretend you're not deaf when you're in fact deaf than pretending you hear quite fine but just choose to not respond. Any signing or communicating by text would surely be a dead giveaway. Yay. That's incredibly rude of her, and this day she found out that it's also very suspicious. She can't just go around completely ignoring people she expects to perform a service for her. Why not at any point explain that she was deaf? Was your friend just straight up ignoring the hairdresser? Yeah, I saw the comment about the t-shirt, but that don't mean jack. My mom had a UCLA tote bag and has, as far as I know, never been to America. She got it when a student left it in their dorm at the end of term, and anything and everything was put in lost and found for the next term and was still there long after. Hell, I'm wearing a university hoodie and I never went into further education other than some city and guilds in the 90s and sitting BSL in 2005. Op just needs to use their words, establish that their friend cannot hear, due to the masks cannot lip read, and all communications will have to be done through them or written out on a phone screen. Every time I've been to the hairdresser, they quickly put a black cape thing on to protect my clothes. I doubt she even noticed it. Uda. This isn't a cape to keep your clothes clean, this is so I don't have to look at your lack of fashion sense for a minute longer. Exactly. I have taken a Gallaudet class before and have a shirt from it. I am very much not deaf. It wouldn't have been good if the hairstylist had made unfounded assumptions here. I'd love to hear Gemma's perspective on this. It sounds like you did a lot in the name of helping her, but you never said she asked for any of this. I wear a hearing aid and people assume it's an earpiece. Never assume, people are really effing stupid sometimes. That was my thinking. Like colleges will literally send you free t-shirts just to get you to apply. I have tons of shirts from universities that I never even considered. Many people are fans of college teams for schools that they never attended and wear the gear anyway. It means nothing just to have it on your shirt. You know, if I was a human trafficker, it might make sense to do things that imply the person is deaf, like that sweatshirt. Also, if her friend doesn't want people to know she's deaf, why is she wearing that shirt around? And let's not forget Gemma was making a change to her hair. We don't know how blonde she started, but going blonder could be a significant change. Human traffickers are likely to change the appearance of the victim. The hairstylist is completely warranted in calling the cops. Her intentions were good and did not deserve to be screamed at. Uda. This is a really good point. Really good. Does anyone else think it makes no sense for her to wear a School for the Deaf hoodie if she feels that strongly about people knowing she's deaf? Strongly doubt that detail is true. Manager isn't going to open the salon up to a wrongful dismissal suit over a better safe than sorry misunderstanding. Has a real and then everyone clapped ring to it. It's rather common for managers to fire employees to appease pissed off customers. I figure that's probably what actually happened. This is where the story took a turn to obviously made up for me. Solidly Uda. It came off as human trafficking and she was actually trying to do your friend a service. Hairstylists and flight attendants are on the front lines of stopping it. I don't think you realized how concerning the situation appeared. Highly traumatized people who can hear won't react to sounds, fear just shuts things down, and people being trafficked aren't usually allowed to speak to people in situations like that. Combined with your highly aggressive personality and the ages meant the situation was sending up all kinds of red flags. There were things you could have done to explain, but I have a feeling you think you didn't need to. Nope, original post went straight to outrage and entitlement, and reacted in the most immature and belligerent way you could expect from an 18-year-old who feels they have been wronged. I think the biggest issue is that original post was hovering. Original post wasn't just sitting and waiting in a chair like a normal person. Or even standing near her friend so they could talk. She was right there watching everything, never giving her friend or the hairdresser any space. That's textbook abuse/trafficker behavior. I'm sure it looked like original post was making sure Gemma couldn't ask for help/escape. I would have found it weird too. I went to the hospital for a sprained ankle while my best friend was in town. He went into the room with me because we literally only get to see each other in person like once a year, and I wasn't wasting any of that time because of my stupid ankle. One of the first things the nurse did was ask if I was being abused while my best friend was in the room. He actually shook his head and punched his hand as if he were threatening to beat me up, laughing my butt off, but the nurse didn't notice. Once I said no, and the nurse saw that my best friend was just there to chat with me and play games on our phones, he relaxed and the rest of the visit was uneventful. Original post could definitely have handled the situation better from the start. I think the biggest issue is that original post was hovering. Original post wasn't just sitting and waiting in a chair like a normal person. This is unrelated to what really makes original post an but it also gets me that original post so confidently knew the hairdresser wasn't using the right things and was trying to correct her. Like, I'm sorry, but you were probably effing up her work and making it harder by saying friend wants X and then telling her to use something different. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.